You're listening to the Archaeology Podcast Network.
You have my sword.
And you have my bow.
And my trowel.
Hi, you're listening to episode 70 of And My Trowel, where we look at the fantastic side of archaeology and the archaeological side of fantasy. I'm Ash.
And I'm Tilly.
And today, we're all talking about hobbits and settlements.
Hobbits. As much as we thought that we would just do a couple of episodes on The Hobbit and then move on and do something else, we're now literally still at
Hobbit. Yes, we haven't left.
And we're 3 episodes in. So
we got stuck on the maps and that's the first page. So yeah, we are still uncovering, excavating Hobbiton.
Yes. So last episode we did a bit more about the lineages and the sort of cultural side of the hobbits. But of course, we are at heart archaeologists. We're also material culture girlies. So we focus on physical, tangible things as well. Mm-hmm. Which I guess the first thing you think of when you think of a hobbit?
The door.
In terms of a door.
The door. Definitely.
You know what, for a second there, I thought you were going to say, I don't know, a pipe or thinking, I was like, no, Ash, I haven't prepared that.
Fairy feet. No, it was the door. It's the Hobbit door. Everyone knows it's the Hobbit door. It's so classic to just hobbits, isn't it? Nobody else has a circular door, I don't think, anywhere else. No, right? No one? No, I
think so. Yeah. So,
not at all.
Yeah. So I thought maybe today we could chat a little bit about, indeed, Hobbiton itself and hobbit-holes. Although maybe we might not even get to hobbit-holes today, knowing us. We might only focus on Hobbiton. We can see how far we get. But because settlement archaeology is a massive thing, and looking at settlements and looking at that kind of thing, which have you done a lot of that in your kind of career as a field archaeologist? Because you're in Scotland, right? So, I mean, there weren't maybe that many settled structures apart from just post holes.
Excuse you? That's so rude.
She's getting cancelled by the entire Scottish population.
As you should, just like Susanna Reid's just been cancelled. Yes. No, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily call it settlement archaeology in many ways, but you're using theories as you're interpreting and excavating a site. Yeah. So I've worked on a few different sites, usually roundhouses, which go in, it's usually from the Neolithic up into the Bronze Age or even into the Iron Age sometimes.
Cool.
So yeah, you're right. There are a lot of negative features usually. When you find standing structures, it's usually in Scotland. It tends to be a medieval or post-medieval. So you're dealing with brick and stone and things like that. If it's an earth dwelling, which is just used organic stuff, because a lot of the times in Scotland we have very acidic soil, so a lot of organic stuff doesn't tend to stay around too much. So you do just get the shadows of it. But you do have to figure out which came first, or when you're excavating, you'll find with, roundhouses especially, there'll be lots of intercutting ditches, post holes that intersect one another because they're moving it constantly. Or you'll see that kind of shift. I always think it looks like coffee rings on a table.
Yes.
I always think it looks like that because then you're constantly shifting.
Such a good point.
Yeah, you're shifting the settlement around. And obviously it can be generational as well. So that's why you have it's over such a long period of time that people tend to come back to a site, they abandon it, they burn it, or and then they come back a few generations later. It might be because it's just a really good site, it's right next to a river or there's resources around there and they come back. Or it's totally different people that have come back. Yeah. But so you just have this kind of coffee mug-esque movement on your site plan.
Of coffee mugs.
Yeah. And then obviously, you're sampling it and stuff and it'll kind of give you a better idea of what's going on. And obviously when you're digging it, you can see what intersects another one, what's truncating it and what's not. So you can kind of figure out what came first. And that's what I imagine with hobbits. But I suppose with hobbits, they're dug structures, so that would be really difficult to. I mean, the tunnel excavations might be quite cool because then you might have intersecting tunnels.
And I wonder if they always used to do, because of course some of the earlier what we would think of as settlements, although again we're going to have to get into this in a second, what is a settlement and nomadic versus sedentary societies, because I think that's quite an important point to mention. But because the earliest sort of domestic spaces, shall we say, that we know of in the archaeological record are generally in caves. But that's usually just because they're the only ones that survive because they're in a cave. Like, whereas if you have like those domestic spaces that are outside of the caves and just like out on the plains, over hundreds of thousands of years, they've been like wiped away. And I'm talking about like early humans.
Yeah. Even Mesolithic nomadic groups, you tend to find them via Middens a lot of the time, by their waste.
By their rubbish heaps.
By the
Midden, by the way.
Midden. A midden is a big hole, essentially.
A big hole full of rubbish.
Usually you find them, I would say, a little bit inland of beaches. So there are stuff where they throw away their rubbish. So you'd find lots of shells, maybe some fish bones.
Shell middens, very famous,
shell midden. You sometimes find lithics in them too, like broken ones and things like that. And some organic material if there is any. But yeah, the middens are just big bins. I think of them as like a big bin.
And depending on the kind of like society that you had. So for example, when you start to see more like towns where you have like built structures closer together, then quite often the middens will be between the walls of the houses. So you'll just have like the house walls, and then in between the house walls of one house and another house, you just have like this massive heap of rubbish basically building up over time. Yeah, which I can't even imagine what that would have been like, just having a massive heap of rubbish next to your house. But I guess that's what we have now.
Still
we just
have
the
it
bins out the back of the house. Yeah,
but we also still have rubbish heaps. Like if you go to Glasgow, the M8 on the when you're going towards Edinburgh, on the left hand side is just a huge rubbish pit.
Just a huge rubbish heap.
And the only reason you don't see it is because it's covered in grass, and then there's like big tubes that go all the way down it to express the gases that is basically breaking down. So we still live next to big middens. We just aren't in control of them a lot of the time.
Relocated them a little bit, exactly.
Yeah, middens as well in the Mesolithic tend to be a little bit further away from the settlement, not a big distance, but walking distance, or even a few hundred meters. Sometimes they're right next to it, but you don't really want a midden like right next to where you're eating or you're sleeping and things like that too. So you see some sort of like changes in waste management too. And then when people become more crowded, I think waste builds up right next to them, doesn't it?
Yeah, no, that's true actually. Because the one I was thinking of, and I'm just gonna drop a name here, is Chattelhoyuk. Hoyuk. I went there for one season and I use it as like my whole identity.
To be fair though, I would too. If I worked on Chattelhoyuk, I'd be like, wow, when I was on Chattelhoyuk, when I met Hobbit.
Chattelhoyuk, by the way, I'll probably talk about it a bit later when we talk about buildings in specifically, but like it's one of the like longest lived settlements from prehistory kind of thing, like continuous habitation basically. And yes, it's very cool. It's in Turkey, and they have, what I distinctly remember is this thing of like having the middens in between the walls, but that's a highly settled society. And indeed, maybe we should talk a little bit about like what is a settlement, like what is a settled society or a nomadic society, because I know that a lot of people have this whole thing about like hunter-gatherers living in tents, moving about the land, and like not settling and remaining in one place for long periods of time. They move with the seasons and everything. And then as soon as farming starts, then suddenly it's settlement. That was the very like old-fashioned traditional way of thinking about it. But that's not really... It's a lot more, as with everything in archaeology, it's a lot more complicated than that.
It's not as homogenous, I think, as well in archaeology, especially in prehistory. Like, yes, you have the Mesolithic and you do have people moving around the landscape, but that does not mean that they don't build settlements or even temporary settlements. Yes. And a lot of people carry them on their back too, you know? Yeah. So as they're moving, they have certain places they will go. That's why we know, like, certain caves you were talking about are inhabited during like winter months or even summer months if they're close to the sea, you know. So they go to the sea during the summer and then they come inland in the winter, and it just all depends on where the game is and where resources are. And they know these patterns. I would say that's quite a settled thing to do in many ways, because you're recognizing a pattern and fulfilling it over and over again over generations. But yeah, I think the traditional sense, and I think it comes from the Neolithic boom of farming, this settlement idea of stagnating in one place and then using the resources around it, or bringing the resources to you rather than going out to find them.
Yeah. And also, but also the assumption is that like, oh, it was an evolution. Like hunter-gatherer was an earlier thing and then it went to farming. But that's not the case at all, because you see like, and even settled societies, there's actually a strong tie with that kind of agriculture and cultivation and everything, but it's not always the case. And I think that, yeah, what you were saying, right? Like the sort of seasonality of everything made a huge difference on how settled people were at different kinds of year. But even then, there was a lot of movement. Like you were talking about in prehistoric Scotland, for example, that you had a lot of abandonment of potentially, permanent, in quotation marks, settlements due to just different, I don't know, weather conditions, different seasons, like all of that kind of thing. So even if you're settled, you're not necessarily like in one place.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing people really underestimate is the weather, the change in climate and how much that impacted humans in prehistory. I mean, right now we are going through a huge climate change, as everyone is well aware of.
Well,
we're going through like an El Nino event and everything, which is going to get really warm and things like that, which is not great. But like, I find that we've sort of missed I suppose it's the reality of being human in many ways, because we are so settled in our traveling, if that makes sense. So like we stay in one house usually, we move about, buy a house, rent a house, and we stay in that place and we go out to get stuff. But actually we don't change it even if our landscape changes. Yes. We stay there and we sort of dig in and hope for the best. But if something wasn't right for you, or say the population of some sort of game animal is not there anymore or has moved, then you would have to go and figure out where it is. That's like a whole process that dictates where you live in prehistory.
Yeah, exactly. And also like population pressures are probably one of the big contributors of how often people settled and when not. So actually, I saw what was the paper that I read? I think it was the one that we did for the APN Journal Club, actually. And they were talking about how basically the women living in these Mesolithic societies would have... No, what was it? Oh, no, I know what it was. Never mind. Sorry. Apologies. What you saw there, folks, was Matilda trying to think of a reference that she read in real time. It was when I was researching, I did a talk about the Venus figurines. Oh, yes. Venus, in quotations, from the Paleolithic. And one of the popular theories about them is that they were basically a kind of educational tool. So they were supposed to show, and that's why the kind of genitalia is so emphasized and everything on the different aspects, is because they were supposed to show like young women and girls, like what happens and how their bodies change and like all this kind of stuff. And one of the suggestions was that it was not necessarily a fertility symbol in terms of like, we want to have more babies, but more in terms of like, look, this is how you can potentially prevent more babies, or like, this is how you can understand when you will have a baby, when you will not have a baby, like all of these kinds of things. Because actually, hunter-gatherer, like if you're walking around, not hunter-gatherers, I shouldn't be making that thing hunter-gatherer, nomadic societies, so ones that move around quite a lot, you don't really want to have loads of babies, because you're going to have to carry them. They can't walk as far and all this kind of thing. So it's actually, you want to be able to plan a little bit more and you want to be able to understand that. It's obviously just a theory, this theory, like, and it's very much, of course, as all theories are, probably biased by modern interpretations and modern perceptions of, child rearing, etc. But I found it quite an interesting point about how, if you have, the larger your population gets, also the more like elderly you have. And if you're able to survive for longer because you're getting a better nutrition because, of different things. So then also you have a lot of more elderly population, and then you're getting more children because you're all healthier and you're all able to have more children. And then it's that whole thing of like, what came first, larger population sizes or settled societies? And there's a whole discussion about that, which I find
it's a convoluted thing. It is fascinating. But I remember even my dissertation was on, like my undergrad dissertation was a lot about infant mortality and female mortality and burials. And I remember looking at like ethnographic sources that even mentioned some of the Venus figurines as well. And they were talking about how to plan children was actually really important in Paleolithic society, potentially, because obviously, you're walking quite a bit. You're traveling thousands of miles a lot of the time. Generationally, you don't want to be pregnant during the time that you're moving, because that's also, and then you'll also have like potentially another child that's on your back while you're walking. So breastfeeding was encouraged as much as possible because it would lower your chances of fertility.
Yeah,
there is all that kind of stuff, which is it's deeply fascinating actually to look at like how society has moved and settled in a way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Do you hear that?
Oh my god, is that someone digging a tunnel underneath our house?
I think it might be.
Oh my gosh, why? Okay, hang on, we need to go sort this out. We'll be right back.
Okay, well, glad we got that sorted. Now he's redirected his tunnel somewhat.
Yeah, they were going right into our own storage area, which is not ideal.
Yeah, well, speaking of storage areas, so something that is also quite important about the kind of transition from, well, not transition, because again, that implies evolution. Gosh, I hate vocabulary. Like, I really... trying to talk about these things, you use so many words that have all these ties and assumptions like laced into them. Okay, the struggles of an archaeologist, everyone. Whatever we say, we know that it may be wrong. Strongly suggests.
Yes. We think perhaps.
Maybe.
We don't know.
Possible potential transition. There we go.
A possible potential transition from nomadic movement
to sedentary society. Could be related to storage. Okay. Storage. I did it.
But not in real life, but in Hobbiton.
Yeah. Well, because that's what's quite interesting, because I was thinking about Hobbiton again and talking about like nomadics versus settled, because obviously the Hobbiton that we know from reading The Hobbit now, they're very much settled. Right? Like,
yes, they are the most settled people you could ever
see. And storage is also a big part of that. And of course, storage kind of facilitates that settlement, because rather than having to follow the seasons and rather than having to follow things, if you have storage, then you reduce that kind of seasonal risk because you've stored for the long term. So you don't have to worry about following immediate resources because you have like backup, basically.
Yeah. But what I also find interesting with hobbits in general is because I think storage and ownership are part of their social hierarchy. Like there's so much emphasis, and Hobbit culture is kind of obsessed with stored food. You know,
true.
I think they talk about larders and pantries and smoke rooms and cellars. Like
the beginning of The Hobbit, right? You have basically the dwarves coming in and emptying out his larder, right? Like,
exactly. And then if you think of even like Lord of the Rings, we're thinking about, you know, Bilbo's wealth and how his family want his wealth, the Saxville Bagginses and all that kind of stuff. And it's because he has a lot of storage.
yes, a lot of stuff. Know? Which really, so does that mean that me having like a bunch of stuff stored up in my attic, that actually means that I am at a really high social level?
I think you need to reassess what that means, because if you're not storing like jams,
what I'm hearing is that I am a very high status hobbit. That's what I'm hearing.
Is it food stuff? I don't think so. I mean, it might have. You might have like a few different types of skull up there, because Tilly, like the other day, Tilly she sent me a video and she was like, "I'm just boiling some heads," and I was like, "I hope they're not human." And she's like, "No." And I was like, "Okay, have fun."
Cow. By the way, for our listeners, no, it was cow and pig,
because that's a normal hobby.
I needed the teeth.
That's even worse.
Okay. Although
so
we do
I'm
also
not
have
sure
a lot
on
of
the
jams downstairs.
Hobbit hierarchy how much teeth will...
I'd probably be that weird hobbit who lives down the road. And
you wouldn't be.
Woods.
You'd be like you'd be like, you're a fallowhide or something. Yeah. Go away.
Oh no, not fallowhide.
Well, saying that, mentioning the fallowhides, I kind of want to step back a little bit and talk a little bit about the 3 different hobbit breeds, because I think the way that the hobbits kind of amalgamate in many ways is it shows you that kind of sedentary movement into sedentarism. Yes. You know,
we're
the word.
Professional archaeologists, guys.
Yes.
We've been telling you this from the start.
I'm not professional. Whoever told you that? That's a lie. Qualified. Different from professional. Yeah. I'm all right. But basically, in the prologue of The Lord of the Rings, which I know is not The Hobbit, but still, we've got the Far, which you also see in the Rings of Power series. And they are basically the kind of the Hobbit. The normal Hobbit.
Money hobbits.
They are the default settled earth-dwelling Hobbit, right? Then you have the Stoors, which are kind of broader. They have affinity with rivers and boats. And you kind of see that kind of... There's like I almost imagine them living in Cranogs, but that's maybe my yeah, that would be cool.
Yeah, which we'll definitely have to talk about Cranogs another day. But yes, we'll get to that.
That would be cool. But yes, we will get to that actually. Lake Town.
Yes,
but yes, we will. Yeah. But yeah, so they're the kind of wet adapted species of hobbits. Yes. And then you've got the Fallowhides, which is Tilly, which is basically the taller, fairer, woodland-loving ones that are more associated with hunting, boiling teeth and so forth. All those things. But basically you find that Tolkien, he talks about how they all kind of blend into one. They start to intermarry and they start to kind of... You still have different characteristics like Pippin and things like that. He has different Fallowhide and Halffoot.
Tooks.
Yeah, Tooks. Kind of genealogy, and we talked about that in the last one. But it basically kind of shows that kind of... It isn't a single clean transition, and it's just like that in the Neolithic, I find, as well in Europe, that it's not a clean transition straight into farming. There is adaptation and movement, and then you find people living more in settlement areas.
Yes.
We shall see.
Yeah. And you could argue that actually the hobbits as well, yes, they're farmers, they cultivate, but they also do gather a lot, right? They go out and get mushrooms and things like that.
They have their own gardens. And
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's that, and cultivation. And so I looked up a couple of archaeological examples, case studies, to back up our argument with this, because you have... Go for it. Yes. So you have you have loads of interesting examples from prehistory. But for example, there's the Natufian culture, which date to around like 13,000 to sort of 10,000 BCE, so before the year zero. They lived in the Levant, and they lived in settlements basically with stone houses and stored food, but no agriculture, no cultivation. They were fully hunter-gatherer in their subsistence strategies.
Amazing.
Because they had that storage, because they had sort of more consistent, shall we say, access to the things that they were hunting and gathering. They didn't need to move around, so they could be sedentary. So, that's one example. Another example you have is the Jomon, which I'm probably saying wrong. Apologies.
That sounds very French.
I know, right? Didn't you know there's a really strong link between Japanese and French? Jomon culture. I actually did Japanese for 1 year at school, would you believe?
I believe it. You can tell me the weirdest fact ever about you. You'd be like, I went to the moon. I'd be like, yeah, absolutely. That makes so much sense.
Well, because I went to school in Australia for 5 years, and obviously Australia, as close to Japan as it is to France. So we did French, but we also did Japanese. So I can say Nwabangowa is my... What's your telephone number? Apparently.
That's a good one.
You did
always a good one to know. Whoever asks that anymore? Nobody asks what's your telephone number.
Right? No one needs telephone numbers anymore.
Just no. Yeah. Yo. It's just yo. Your mon.
Speaking of, your mon.
Wow.
There we go. Look at that for a segue.
That was terrible.
So the Jomon culture of Japan, which was between around 14,300 BCE, depending on the region.
That's a huge...
Right. Massive area. They had very complex sedentary settlements. They also, the most famous thing that they're known for is their pottery. You've probably heard of Jomon pottery, people listening, which we'll put some links in the show notes to look it up, but like they are beautiful. They're like these gorgeous, and they get progressively more kind of complex over time as well. They're these really beautifully decorated pots and everything. So you have this pottery, you have really complex settlements, but hunter-gatherers. There's no evidence of permanent cultivation technologies. So again, living as hunter-gatherers for the majority of this time, which is really fascinating.
And this is the thing with pottery as well. This is a huge misconception that I think in archaeology, that pottery is a settled thing to do. It is so not. It's a farming thing to do, people say. It's not. In Scotland, they're like, there was no pottery in the Mesolithic. That's incorrect. There was pottery, but not much of it. And it doesn't survive as much. And people are using different types of organic stuff too. So it's always such a misconception. So that's a great example of that.
Yeah, there you go. And then my final case study example that I want to share is what's known as the Eastern Agricultural Complex in Northeast America. And you can see evidence of kind of plant cultivation. So the sort of early precursor of farming, what we would think of as farming, which starts around 2000 BCE, so before the year zero. And it has like sunflowers and a kind of barley and lots of other different kinds of plants, but I didn't recognize them, so I didn't meant to mention them. And then you even have like more southern plants start to emerge. So for example, corn and maize, and they start to be cultivated much later, so around the sort of first millennium CE. But you basically have a huge climatic event around like 1200 or 1300, which meant that there was a lot of drought happening in like huge areas of America, especially in the Northeast. And because of that, and this is what we were talking about earlier, the importance of climate and adapting to your environment, we actually see a lot of these cultures which were kind of fully focused on this cultivation subsistence pattern. So like basically farmers, they revert to a more kind of predominant hunter-gatherer lifestyle again, because that's what they have to do in order to survive. So it can go back and forth, and it's very complicated depending on where you are in the world. So who knows with the hobbits? Because also I'm just thinking, so I haven't read the precursors to the Hobbit. I haven't read the Silmarillion, etc. I've tried, but I have not managed. I have not succeeded until now. But from what I have seen on Rings of Power, TV show, which I also haven't finished, disclaimer, I still haven't watched the latest series, but the hobbits are nomadic in that, right?
So basically they take the three different types of hobbits. So the Harfoots, which are in Tolkien are the most hobbit-like hobbits that we know, like what a hobbit is. They are seen as nomadic, so they kind of move around the landscape and stuff like that. And then it's kind of one of their journey. But then really you'd think that's more like the Fallowhides, but they don't call them that. They call them Harfoots. And then they meet the Stoors as well. The Stoors are... Oh, no, do they meet the Stoors? They meet... It must be another type of Harfoot or something, because... They go with, oh, sugar, I know they spoiled it there, I won't. They go with a man and they find...
We don't know who it is.
Yeah, like hole-dwelling hobbits, which are basically the Harfoots, but they don't call them that.
Interesting. Okay. I haven't got that.
And so, it's like a desert people. That's, what they find. Okay. So...
Which is also, though, a nice example to sort of demonstrate what we have in like our real world archaeology as well, is that you have so much variation even with the same species. Like you can see so much variation in different habitation lifestyles.
Yeah, I think they've really, with the Rings of Power, they're kind of not really sticking to literature.
I see. I mean, then apologize.
Yeah.
Probably half of our listeners are now shouting at me through the thing, being like, but that's not the Hobbit.
But Tom Bombadil turns up, which is fun, because he's not in... Yes,
interesting. I haven't got to him at all. Like I say, I've only watched, I think, the first and a half series. I really need to...
Yeah, but he does turn up, Tom Bombadil, and you know, that's really exciting because he's not in the films, where he should be. But like, you know, I get why he's not in the films. But like, yeah, so there's... And then they turn Sauron into basically a romantasy shadow daddy, which I was all for, not gonna lie. That made me really confused though, because I was like, Sauron's not good. Why? Why are you shipping him with Galadriel? What's happening? She's well, okay. It made me very confused. Anyway, we've gone on a tangent.
No, we should move on. We've gone on a slight tangent here. Going back to the Hobbit. So
what? No, let's stay with Sauron. No.
But yeah, so where they are at the moment, indeed, where we are when we meet them, when we come to the Hobbit then, is that all of them have kind of settled, really. But maybe in some strands of Hobbit, you still have that kind of, that cultural urge to travel and to go around. And
that's what it explores, doesn't it? It kind of explores that the different, or the pushing the Hobbit out of its comfort zone with Bilbo, which is like the best. It's great. But yeah. I think it is interesting though that the wealth, it becomes a symbol of wealth or a symbol of respectability, having really big larders. Storage. Yes. And it's like, and the strange intensity that hobbits have with like an anxiety around meals. Like we must have this kind of meal and this must be, and maybe that is part of a different, maybe it's an echo from a different lifestyle that their ancestors had, where maybe food was a bit more scarce.
Yeah, so you had that food security. What would be if you were a hobbit, what would be your thing that you would have to always have in the larder?
That's really difficult for me because I don't really enjoy food that much.
Okay, well, clearly not a hobbit.
You wouldn't think it looking at me, but like, I don't actually enjoy food that much. Well, I'm a chunky gal, but like, I mean, I like drinking. No, I'd like drinking more, but not in that way. Like, so I'd have to have like a good ale or something, or like a good like storage of juice.
Yes.
Yeah,
Fine
that would be
juices.
my thing. Yours would probably be tea or something.
Mine definitely would be tea.
Yeah.
Although honestly, I'm the opposite. I love food. So I'm not that fussy about what kind of food. It should be something like something sort of snacky. Like, at the moment, I always have to have some dried mango, which sounds super fancy. But
I love dried mango though.
It's just
so nice.
It's just the little thing, and it's an attempt to try and stop myself eating too much chocolate.
Well, do you have I've got something for you then. I tried this the other day because I saw it online, and actually it really works. I think it's a Filipino thing, but it's avocado with condensed coconut milk. No. I'm the same, but seriously, no. You're judging before you even try. Like, that's not
avocado,
fair.
and no.
Yes, I know. I don't like avocado either. I think it's meh. But I'm serious. If you put, shut up. I'm serious. If you put condensed coconut milk on it, unreal. It is unreal. I'm not joking. Honestly, converted. Couldn't believe it. This is the best thing I've ever ate. So good.
All right. I think we're going to do a little survey. So any listeners who want to test that,
try it. It's so good.
Let us know what you think.
Tilly's not going to try it, is she? You can tell already. That's absolutely you have so many vegetables. I'm sure your husband could scratch up an
avocado. Yes, they do grow beautifully in central Germany.
Like, you never know. I don't know. He can find something. He can find an avocado for you.
Is there an alternative to avocado? Avocado is just one of those few things that
you could try mango with it as well, but it's not. I suppose that would be really nice too.
Mango and condensed milk. Say no more. I am there. I'm going to the shops now. Which means that we should probably wrap up this episode about my trowel.
Yeah, so Tilly can go get a mango on.
So I can go get my mango and my condensed milk. We hope that you enjoyed this episode, this little dive into settlement archaeology. As always, please do like, subscribe, follow us wherever you get your podcasts. It really helps to support the show, and it helps other people to find us as well. If you're interested in hearing more archaeology content, make sure to check out the other shows on the Archaeology Podcast Network. And as always, if you have any comments on the episode or ideas for future topics, or you just want to get in touch, you can find all of our contact information as well as links and further information of what we discussed today in the show notes.
Thanks for listening to this podcast. The Archaeology Podcast Network's chief editor is Rachel Roden. Our executive producer is Ashley Airy. Our social media and newsletter coordinator is Matilda Siebrecht. The APN was founded by Chris Webster and Tristan Boyle on December 1st, 2014. We're supported by our amazing podcast hosts, many volunteers, and listeners like you. Check out membership at www.archpodnet.com/members.
This has been a presentation of the Archaeology Podcast Network. Visit us on the web for show notes and other podcasts at www.archpodnet.com. Contact us at chris@archaeologypodcastnetwork.com.